Hi. So I wanted to tell you about something I saw when I was in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem the other day. If you can see this, it's showing, you can see a cloud of red in the middle, and if you can tell, there's a bride and a groom standing under what's called a chuppah, a canopy, and close up you can see there's a cameraman, and the groom is wearing a mask, the guests are wearing masks, and what is going on here? Well, this is how an installation called The Wedding was prepared, and it was an installation done by a very famous artist by the name of Ullman. And I wanted to tell you something about Micha, so I'll go to Wikipedia. That's him, Ullman. He was born in, I don't know, I guess around 1933, something like that. His parents had been German, and they moved to what was then called the Mandate of Palestine, before there was the State of Israel. And he studied art at the Bezalel Academy of Art and Design in Jerusalem, where my daughter is going to be attending in October. And he taught at the Bezalel Academy, and he's been doing a lot of work in installations. Maybe one of the most famous things he did is this. It's called the Bibliothek Memorial in Bebelplatz Square in Berlin, where the Nazi book burnings began in 1933. And it consists of a window on the surface of the plaza under which you can see vacant bookshelves, and they're lit and they're visible. And there's a quote by Heinrich Heine, where books are burned, in the end people will burn. So he's very much in installations, and I saw this thing in the Israel Museum. Again, that's the first slide of how it was made. It was called The Wedding. Here's a very, very small part of it. It's like 200 meters square altogether. And what you can see are footprints, and they're in a circular pattern, more or less. This is where where the bride and groom are standing. But throughout the room, you see a floor filled with footprints going in circles, and where tables were. You see at one end a broken glass. That's part of the Jewish wedding ceremony, where a groom breaks a glass to signify the destruction of the Jerusalem temple back, I don't know, in 89 AD, something like that, by the Romans. And I was staring at this installation, and when I read the plaque, it said that many, many people were involved in creating this, and Micha Ullman threw red sand at them all, and then carefully removed them from the scene. And there was no other information other than carefully removed. And I was imagining, of course, all kinds of careful removals, perhaps cranes, perhaps helicopters. Who knew? So I went searching to see how it was made. Hi. So I've been looking on Wikipedia for things about Micha Ullman, and I wanted to tell you what I found. Okay, here goes. I hope the camera is seeing me, because I can't tell. He was born in Tel Aviv, but not in 1933, as I said. It was in 1939. And he's living in Ramat Sharon, which is a very beautiful area, just outside of Tel Aviv. And as I said, he created the Bibliothek Memorial in Berlin, and he said something about that installation. He said, "It begins with the void that exists in every pit and will not disappear. You could say that emptiness is a state, a situation formed by the sides of the pit. The deeper it is, the more sky there will be, and the greater the void. In the library containing the missing books, that void is more palpable. We expect the books, but they are not there." Okay, so he's talking about expectation versus reality, And that's what hits us when we see that memorial, which was just the beginning, of course, of the atrocities that happened in Berlin as Jews were slowly gathered around and transferred to concentration camps and death camps. But that's another story. His parents escaped that, and he's in Israel. Okay, what else? He made something called Hochwasser. If some of you know German, perhaps you can correct me, which means flooding. And it's on a small island near the Werra River in Germany, and it was inspired by a boat Ullman saw there with a sign on it stating it had a capacity of up to 7 passengers. Now this is interesting because Ullman's father, Yitzhak, had lived nearby, and he had immigrated to Palestine with 7 siblings in 1933, so it could easily be that that boat was similar to the one that his father had taken to his freedom. And what else? He won the Israel Prize for Sculpture in 2009, and altogether he's a very interesting gentleman. And I knew nothing about him until I went to Jerusalem 2 days ago, and I saw this wonderful exhibit. And what was interesting was as you walk along the hallway, you see 2 openings, and you look in, and you see a huge floor covered in orange sand with footprints, and you don't know what's going on, and you think, Then there's an explanation, and on the explanation it says that this is the wedding, and that the room was filled with guests sitting around tables, and Michael Ullman threw sand at them, and then at the end of the ceremony he carefully removed them from the room. And so, of course, you can imagine, what's this careful removal? Could it be a helicopter? Maybe cranes were taking these people out of the room so as not to disturb the footprints. And the people I was with were half interested, half of them weren't. Some of them just examined this room and let their imaginations take off, and others just went right by. And interestingly enough, going right by would lead you to an area where you could sit down carefully and quietly and watch some choreography by Merce Cunningham. There was a huge long dance. When I got there, it had already been on for an hour, and there was no sign of it letting up. And it was 3 groups of dancers doing very dramatic poses, very sleek costumes, to music by John Cage. It was very, very striking. And for me, it was just a piece of heaven to have so much tactile information in such a quiet and receptive atmosphere. It was really, really wonderful. If you ever get to Jerusalem, you can drop by the museum. There's always something interesting going on there.